Today we're talking about gasoline. What's the best fuel for your car? Does higher octane mean more energy or more power? If you put premium gas to a car that requires regular gas, will it improve your engine performance or gas mileage? Hop in and we'll get going. In the U.S., unleaded gasoline usually comes in 3 grades. Normally, we have 87 for basic or regular, 89 for plus or mid-grade, and 93 for premium. But what is octane rating and what does it mean? Octane rating refers to how resistant a fuel is to combustion by pressure. The higher the octane rating, the more compression the fuel can withstand before it ignites. Higher octane fuels are often required or recommended for engines that use a higher compression ratio and or use supercharging or turbocharging to force more air into the engine. Increasing pressure in the cylinder allows an engine to extract more mechanical energy from a given air-fuel mixture, but requires higher octane fuel to keep the mixture from pre-detonating. Octane rating does not relate directly to the power output. It has nothing to do with the energy contained per liter or per kilogram of fuel. Fuels with a higher octane rating are used in higher compression engines that potentially yield higher power, but such higher power comes from higher compression of the engine, not necessarily from the gasoline. Do you know why the octane numbers at gas stations in the U.S. differ from those in Europe? Europe has 95 and 99. Does this mean that Europe uses higher octane? No, because in the U.S., gas stations use pump octane number or PON, but Europe uses RON, which means research octane number. It's just a matter of definition. So the American 89 octane, or mid-grade, is the same as the European 95 octane, and the American 93, or premium grade, is the same or similar to the European 99. In 1921, an English engineer, Harry Ricardo, discovered that the more isooctane in the fuel, the more resistance it was to detonation. He developed a scale to measure detonation resistance. Gasoline made up of 100% isooctane was given an octane rating of 100. Harry's work ultimately led to the general use of octane ratings. There are a lot of myths about octane, so answer true or false. The different octane levels means different energy content. Different octanes burn fuel hotter or colder or faster or slower. Different octanes burn fuel cleaner and more fully. If you answered yes to any of these myths, then unfortunately you were wrong, because 1, the different octane levels all contain the same energy content. 2, they also all burn the same temperature at the same speed. 3, a clean or complete fuel burn depends not on the octane, but mainly on the air-to-fuel ratio in your car's combustion chamber. So let's break it down. What happens if your car requires high-octane gas, but you fill it with low-octane instead? Nowadays, modern cars have electronic control units, ECUs, that can adjust engine timing and performance to operate even with lower-octane fuel. So your car will drive, but engine power and fuel economy will still suffer. Frequent use of fuel with octane lower than what your car needs can lead to poor engine performance and eventually damage both the engine and the emission control system. Here's why. Ignore the ECU for a minute. In general, using lower octane gas in a high octane gas car means that under high pressure, gasoline will ignite spontaneously and earlier than it should. And what is called detonation, that is thermal shock, will occur. This is a spontaneous, uncontrolled ignition of fuel in the engine. Detonation leads to a sharp rise in temperature and even to a possible explosion. Will your engine survive the detonation? And how do you know if or when it's happening? Simple. You hear a knock sound from the engine when a detonation occurs. This knock is created by pressure waves that occur during the rapid combustion of the mixture and get reflected from the walls of the cylinder and piston. This reduces the engine power and accelerates the wear inside. So if detonation waves occur, the engine can be damaged or destroyed. That's how gasoline with a lower octane rating can damage the engine pistons if you regularly use it in a car that requires high octane. What about the opposite scenario? Let's say your car maker requires regular unleaded gas, but you upgrade with mid-grade or premium. Will this affect fuel economy or engine performance? It depends on your driving conditions. For example, in most cars, higher octane fuel can improve performance and gas mileage, and it can also reduce carbon dioxide, CO2, emissions during severe duty operation. Like if you're towing a trailer or carrying a heavy load, especially in hot weather. But under normal driving conditions, you'll probably get little to no benefit in fuel economy or engine performance. In that scenario, you have to ask yourself, why pay more for premium gas? So, is there a difference between what your car maker requires versus what they recommend? Yes, there is a difference. In general, if your vehicle requires mid-grade or premium fuel, then higher octane fuel is worth the extra cost. If your owner's manual says your car doesn't require premium fuel, but says that your vehicle will run better on higher octane fuel, in other words, it's recommended but not required, well, then it's really up to you. The cost increase is typically higher than the fuel savings. But some drivers value lower CO2 emissions and lower petroleum usage by even a small amount. And for those drivers, this is more important to them than cost. In conclusion, what fuel should you use for your car? At minimum, use the fuel grade required by the original car manufacturer. Where can you find that information? It's always written in your car manual. If you lost your manual, you can check either the fuel door, because it's usually written there. Or if it's not there, it's probably on the fuel cap. Or if it's not there, check the fuel gauge on your dashboard. Here's a quick cheat sheet on how gasoline works in your car. So you get to the pump, you fuel your car. The gas goes straight to the gas tank. Well, inside the tank is a fuel pump. It pumps the gas into your car's fuel line. The fuel filter filters out debris in the gas. Next, the fuel injector sprays gas into the piston cylinder. The gas gets processed in the engine, typically in a 4-stroke cycle. First, air gets sucked into the cylinder. The air and fuel mix as the piston moves downward in the cylinder. As the piston moves back up, it compresses the air and fuel mixture. Then the spark plug ignites the compressed air and fuel. This causes a combustion reaction. The liquid gas gets converted into exhaust gas, which forces the piston back down. The exhaust valves open. The exhaust gases leave the cylinder, travel through the exhaust pipe, through the catalytic converter, which reduces the pollutants into less toxic substances like carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and water. And then the gases pass through the muffler and into the air. Then there's gas additives. They can work to increase the octane rating of gas, inhibit corrosion, lubricate, and allow higher compression ratio for greater efficiency and power. However, some additives are harmful and are regulated or banned in some countries. Oftentimes, gas retailers treat the gas they buy with specific additives. Ever hear of top-tier detergent gasoline? In 2004, top-tier gasoline was developed to go beyond the minimum standard for detergent additives to better protect engines from carbon buildup and deposits on the intake valves. Nowadays, engines have become far more precise, operating under tighter tolerances and higher compression ratios with cleaner emissions and improved fuel economy. And that's why many big automakers, Audi, BMW, Fiat Chrysler automobiles, General Motors, Honda, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, and Volkswagens support top-tier gas. Top-tier fuel must maintain levels of detergent additives that result in a higher standard of engine cleanliness and performance as compared to the EPA minimum requirement. Also, it can't contain metal additives. Let's talk about ethanol. Ethanol is an alternative alcohol fuel. It's made from plant materials like corn and sugar. In fact, did you know that much of the corn grown in the U.S. isn't eaten, popped, or creamed? Some of it is turned into ethanol. It's added to gasoline because it's a cost-effective way to raise the octane rating of gas. Also, ethanol burns cleanly, so it's also a way to help reduce emissions. Ethanol can be burned in a gasoline engine, but it's less than ideal compared to gasoline. Reason is, it has less chemical energy than diesel or regular gasoline. But since ethanol comes from renewable sources, it makes a lot of sense to use as much of it as we can. Ever see the badge for E85 and wonder what that is? E85 is a blend of 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. It's designed for use in flex fuel vehicles, which can use both gasoline or a mixture of gasoline and ethanol. Well, what happens if you actually put E85 in a non-flex fuel vehicle? Well, your car may run poorly and a check engine light might turn on, but it shouldn't cause major damage to your car. Just be sure to add regular gasoline to the tank when you can to further dilute the ethanol. While 85% ethanol is a bit high use for normal gasoline cars, a more conservative ratio can help stretch gasoline supplies and reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. In fact, that's why at most regular gas stations these days, you might notice a pump with a sticker that says something like, may contain up to 10% ethanol, or a blue pump with a blend of 25%, 30%, or 35% ethanol. These fuels work just fine in most modern cars built after 2002, and that's why we see a bit of ethanol in virtually all gasoline nowadays. You should check your owner's manual or speak to one of the service advisors if you're unsure. By the way, speaking of ethanol and flex fuel cars, did you know that the Ford Model T was the first commercial flex fuel vehicle? The engine of this car was capable of running on both gasoline and ethanol, or a mixture of both. And here are some fun facts about gasoline. Did you know that the U.S. accounts for about 44% of the world's gasoline consumption? Which country do you think has the world's largest gas reserve? You're probably guessing somewhere in the Middle East. But believe it or not, it's Venezuela. They have 298 billion barrels. Compare that to the U.S. We have just 33 billion. And you might be surprised to hear that the U.S. gets more of its oil from Canada and Mexico than it does from the Middle East. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video. Thanks for your support.